Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News. Today we have former state Senator Bryan King joining us. Bryan King is running for Senate District 28. He is in the Republican primary runoff against Senator Bob Ballinger. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, it's always great to have you on Conduit. Lots that I want to talk to you about, but first, let's talk about voter integrity, election integrity. We are seeing this make the headlines here in Arkansas regarding some primary races. Most recently in Crawford County. I saw you in Crawford County on Friday. Talk to us about what you're seeing happening locally.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like the Crawford County. I mean, that is why election integrity, that's why the majority of people don't trust elections. And, in Crawford County, you had the situation where Bill Coleman took ballots home. And I'm a former election commissioner. I know how elections should be run. And that's one of the reasons I showed up down there, was because you have a situation of an election commissioner taking ballots home with him. I mean, that should be treated as a potential criminal investigation.
Are you surprised that it's not?
Yeah, it's just, Republicans want to get on Democrats all the time about how they run elections when they do something bad. Well, you know what? Our process will collapse if we don't hold Republicans accountable. And then you go into the past history of the problem with the Coleman's election. You go back to my 2012 election, where Bruce Coleman, with Bill Coleman on the ballot, was down there counting ballots without anybody around. You have the involvement of Red Hatcher in it. You have, 2016 again, the race with Derek Goodland and Bruce Coleman. You have election problems again. Then in 18, you have more problems. And then now you have even more problems with taking ballots home. And, that should be treated as a potential criminal investigation, because of the past history and the way the Colemans run elections down there. It's very crooked and rigged, to say the least.
Yeah, there were quite a number of Crawford County residents who had shown up to voice their concerns.
Yeah.
They did not want Crawford County to certify that election. They wanted to have a few more questions answered. Of course, you saw that did not happen. And like you mentioned, there were people there who had experienced similar things that Republican primary candidate Jody Harris was going through. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks. What do you think will happen?
What needs to happen is it needs to be treated, as I said, a potential criminal investigation. You do not take ballots home. Any excuse to give to that is something that should be treated as potential fraud, because, there's just no reason that any election commissioner should take ballots home, regardless of the reason.
You certainly have been known to shake up the establishment now and in years prior, especially when you were in the Arkansas legislature. Talk to us about your time there. Let's talk about Senate Bill 175 of 2017. We were going back at Conduit. We were looking at your record. You were one of Conduit's legislator of the year in 2017. And Senate Bill 175 was chosen as best legislation of 2017. Specifically, Bryan, because you pushed back against the establishment. Talk to us about that bill and why you specifically ran that.
Yeah, it was just all the corruption going on and all the Medicaid ties to legislators that was coming out. It came to all the Medicaid money and then not hold them accountable. So certainly Bob Ballinger is not for Medicaid disclosure. Jeff Wardlaw, who was on the committee where it came out later of his financial ties to Michael Morton, another big Bob Ballinger financier, and all the secret money. So you're right. I mean, when you start going down there, it's like Trump. When you go down there and bust their bubble and you start exposing their hypocrisy and the corruption, well, guess what? They're going to come at you with every means possible. That's why we see the secret mailers that we do, funded by the big lobbyists with their lies and half-truths. And, they don't want anybody disrupting the party. That is and that's what they're having down there. And they're having it with financial connections with the legislation that they're voting on. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it's the Duggars. It doesn't matter if it's Bart Hester. It doesn't matter if it's Bob Ballinger. It doesn't matter if it's Jeff Wardlaw. When you start exposing their corruption and their financial ties and demanding accountability, I mean, look how many years we've waited for Bob Ballinger to release his records on Ecclesia College on how much he profited. By the way, he's the only one in the district that profited from sending money, your tax dollars, outside the district. Still does not answer it. So, I mean, it's just all the financial corruption ties. Everything is smoke and mirrors until you start saying, hey, this is wrong. We need to have answers and we need to have accountability and have transparency. Well, that's when they come after you.
In a race of 5 Republican candidates there in Senate District 28, you led the ticket there. People turning out to vote in this runoff, it will be so essential. What do people need to know?
Yeah, they need to know that I'm not part of the establishment. I'm looking out for their money. I'm going to hold accountability, whether you're a Democrat or Republican or whoever's in charge. And that's what I'm going to do. And with that brings enemies. And that's why you have the establishment and the Republicans down there. A lot of these campaigns, they go back to county committees like Bob Ballinger, and they say, I'm for less government, limited government. And they voted for record spending. I mean, they sit there and say, we, took on Democrats and said they were corrupt and doing this and that. Well, then what about you Republicans? I mean, what about Jeff Wardlaw? What about Bart Hester? What about Bob Ballinger and all the financial connections they have with legislation and using your tax dollars to personally profit themselves? And so that's the key that people need to know, who is going to be accountable and transparent and honesty.
Thank you for your time today. And please come back on Conduit before June 21st.
All right, I will. Thank you.